Men like myself are frequently asked how we came to do the kind of work that we do. In other words, as you see in the program, and as the Chancellor's introduction suggested, I do work in the area of gender and gender violence prevention and such. And a lot of times people will ask men like myself, why did you get interested in this? This is kind of, you know, a women's concern, really, and why would a man be so passionate about such a subject? It was not because I knew a specific woman who had been assaulted, or I grew up in a home with domestic violence. It wasn't like that. There was a lot of other reasons why I got involved, and why a growing movement of men around the world, in a multicultural, multi-ethnic sense, are getting involved and standing up and speaking out. And we all have our own stories, but for me, UMass had a lot to do with it, and I'll give you a couple of anecdotes from UMass that I often use in my public life to talk about how I became motivated. I lived in a co-ed dorm here, and when I was a young guy, I was enjoying my freedom to come home late at night from parties and walk across campus at 2 in the morning and not worrying about my safety. And I'm not saying that that was rational or smart, but it's just the way it was. And I was in a co-ed dorm, and I realized very quickly that my female peers on the same floor weren't living at all like that. They were completely constrained by the fear of sexual violence, knowing you need to know where they were at all times, when they're going to have a ride home, buddy system, all the kind of things that women and girls in our society do, when they were doing it here at UMass. And I remember thinking, as a 19-year-old guy, if I had to worry about this on a regular basis, how ticked off I would be. And I would be so upset. And then when I saw women speaking out here at UMass as activists, educators, organizers, saying, this is wrong. I remember not thinking, oh, they hate men, they're just bashing men. I remember thinking, wow, that's what leadership looks like. That's people standing up for themselves. That's people standing up for each other. And not just women standing up for women, but women standing up for men and everybody, basically, who has the right to live free of violence. And I remember being inspired by them rather than put off by them. A big part of my work is promoting the idea that we need a paradigm shift in our thinking about issues of gender and violence, and specifically gender-based violence. And I'm saying gender violence or gender-based violence inclusive of sexual assault, sexual harassment, relationship abuse, sexual abuse of children. All those issues have historically been understood as women's issues that some good men help out with. But I have a big problem with that frame. I don't see these issues in that way at all. I don't see them as women's issues that some good men support and help out with. I, in fact, see them as men's issues. We've talked increasingly over the past 20 years of the effects of these crimes on children. And there's a term that people have used. It's called children who witness domestic violence, and some people have shortened it to children who witness. This is, by the way, a term that I don't like and I don't use. You know why? Because if you're a 7-year-old kid cowering in the closet as your father or another man is raging against your mother, you're not a witness. You're a victim. You're not observing something happening to somebody else. You're experiencing it happening to yourself. The experience of trauma is much more immediate and physical than is suggested by the passive term witness. Well, the category of children who have been traumatized by an adult man's violence includes not just girls, but also boys. Do you have any idea how many boys in our society are in, as we speak, in families where they're experiencing this? Do you have any idea how many young men and boys in the juvenile system in the state of Massachusetts, as well as all over the country, are in the system in part because they have externalized the rage and the self and the shame and other emotional experiences they've had from being the victims of violence? Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea how many men are in prison in the United States? In prison, in part because their life journey started out as traumatized boys. And if you want to be thoughtful in the 21st century, you want to deal with issues of crime and social decay and rioting and all kinds of other things, then understanding root causes is fundamental. You'll often hear people talk about sexual assault and domestic violence. They'll say things like, how many women were raped on college campuses last year, rather than how many men raped women on college campuses. You'll hear people say things like, in a school district, like the Springfield School District, the Boston School District, how many girls were harassed or abused last year, rather than how many boys harassed or abused girls. In each case, the use of the passive voice has a very powerful political effect. The political effect is the shift in focus off of men and boys and onto women and girls. It's not a coincidence. This is not bad thinking or sloppy use of language. This is how power functions. There's a saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I want to give you the opposite about the Valley. What happens in the Valley, what happens at UMass does not stay at UMass. Because this is a place where lots of people learn a lot and gain a lot, myself included, and then take it out and go out into the world with it. And that's, to me, that's one of the goals of a progressive education, of a liberal arts education, of a broad-minded education. So many people are out in the world doing, I hope, transformative social justice work because of what they learned in their experience here at UMass. And I think that's a great thing. So what happens in the Valley does not stay in the Valley. It goes out. And I and many of the people in this room and many of our colleagues who are not in this room are part of that. And I'm, again, proud to be part of that. So UMass is at the center of so much great work, and I hope that we all in this room, in whatever way we can, continue that work. Thank you very much.